The morning sun painted the city streets in golden light as Dr. Angela Thompson checked her watch one more time. 7:15. She had exactly 45 minutes to get to the hospital before her first surgery of the day. The emergency procedure had been scheduled late the night before, and she knew the patient was counting on her steady hands and years of experience. Angela adjusted her rearview mirror and pulled out of her driveway, her navy blue Mercedes sedan purring quietly. She had worked hard for everything she owned. 20 years of medical practice, countless sleepless nights during residency, and more surgeries than she could count had earned her this comfortable life. But even now, at 42 years old, she still felt that familiar knot in her stomach whenever she drove through certain parts of the city. The route to the hospital took her through Millbrook Heights, one of the city's most expensive neighborhoods. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and houses that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Angela had driven this way hundreds of times before. It was the fastest route, and she knew every turn, every traffic light, every speed limit sign. She was humming along to the radio, thinking about the surgery ahead, when she noticed the police car in her rearview mirror. It had been following her for the past 3 blocks, staying exactly 2 car lengths behind. Angela felt her heart rate quicken slightly. She checked her speedometer. 28 miles per hour in a 30 zone. She was doing nothing wrong. The flashing red and blue lights suddenly blazed to life behind her. Angela's stomach dropped. She pulled over to the curb, her hands trembling slightly as she turned off the engine. Through her side mirror, she watched Officer Robert Martinez step out of his patrol car. He was a tall man in his early 30s with a stern face and a walk that seemed to announce his authority to the world. She rolled down her window and placed both hands on the steering wheel, where he could see them. Her father had taught her this lesson long ago. "Always keep your hands visible," he had said. "Never give them a reason to be afraid." Martinez approached the driver's side window, his hand resting casually on his belt. "License and registration," he said without any greeting, his voice flat and cold. "Good morning, officer," Angela replied politely, reaching slowly for her purse. "May I ask why you pulled me over?" Martinez didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her face, then let his eyes wander over the interior of her car. "Just routine," he finally said. "License and registration. Now." Angela handed over the documents, her medical degree diploma hanging from her rearview mirror catching the morning light. Martinez took the papers and examined them for what felt like an eternity. Angela could see him looking back and forth between her driver's license photo and her face as if he couldn't quite believe they matched. "Dr. Angela Thompson," Martinez read aloud, his tone suggesting disbelief. "Says here you live on Riverside Drive." "That's correct, officer. Expensive neighborhood." He looked at her car again, then back at her license. "What kind of doctor are you?" "I'm a surgeon at Metropolitan General Hospital," Angela replied, checking her watch discreetly. 25 minutes until her surgery. "Officer, if I may ask, what's this about? I wasn't speeding, was I?" Martinez ignored her question. "Step out of the vehicle, please." Angela felt her heart skip. "I'm sorry, what?" "Step out of the vehicle. I need to search the car." "Officer, I'm due at the hospital for an emergency surgery in less than 30 minutes. Could you please tell me what this is about?" Martinez's expression hardened. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again. Step out of the vehicle." Angela's mind raced. She knew her rights, but she also knew that arguing with a police officer on the side of the road rarely ended well for someone who looked like her. She opened the door and stepped out, her high heels clicking on the asphalt. "Hands on the hood of the car," Martinez instructed. "Officer, this is completely unnecessary. I'm a respected surgeon in this community. I was simply driving to work." "Sure, you were." Martinez began searching her car, pulling out her medical bag, her appointment book, even her coffee mug. "Nice car for a doctor. You sure this is yours?" Angela felt heat rising in her cheeks. "Of course it's mine. The registration is right there in your hand. Registration can be faked." Martinez continued his search, seeming to take pleasure in making a mess of her organized vehicle. What kind of surgeon did you say you were? Cardiac surgery. Angela watched helplessly as Martinez rifled through her personal belongings. Officer, I really need to get to the hospital. There's a patient waiting for me. Cardiac surgery, huh? Martinez looked at her with obvious skepticism. Seems pretty fancy for someone your age. The comment hung in the air like a challenge. Angela bit her tongue, knowing that pointing out the obvious racial undertones would only make things worse. Instead, she tried a different approach. Officer, if you could just call the hospital, they can verify who I am. Dr. Patterson is the chief of surgery. He can vouch for me. I don't need to call anyone, Martinez replied, continuing his search. I'm conducting a routine traffic stop and I'll decide when it's over. A few cars had slowed down to look at the scene. Angela noticed a woman in a jogging outfit had stopped on the sidewalk, her phone pointed in their direction. The last thing Angela wanted was to become a spectacle, but she was beginning to realize that this was already beyond her control. Officer, please. I understand you're doing your job, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm Dr. Angela Thompson. I work at Metropolitan General, and I have a patient who needs surgery right now. Martinez finally looked up from the car, his search having yielded nothing suspicious. You know what your problem is, he said, stepping closer to her. You don't look like you belong in this neighborhood. Driving a car like this, claiming to be some hotshot surgeon. Something doesn't add up. Angela felt the words hit her like a physical blow. After all her years of education, all her achievements, all the lives she had saved, she was still being judged by the color of her skin and the assumptions that came with it. Officer Martinez, she said, reading his name tag. I've been driving through this neighborhood for 5 years. I've never had a problem before. I'm simply trying to get to work. Yeah, well, there's a first time for everything. Martinez was now standing uncomfortably close, his voice getting louder. Why don't you tell me where you really got this car? Angela's professional composure was starting to crack. I bought it with my own money. Money I earned saving people's lives. Right. Martinez's radio crackled and he stepped away to answer it. Angela could hear him requesting backup, though she couldn't understand why. She posed no threat to anyone. She was a middle-aged woman in business attire standing next to her own car, guilty of nothing more than trying to get to work on time. As Martinez spoke into his radio, Angela looked at her watch again. 15 minutes until surgery. Even if this ended right now, she would be cutting it close. But it didn't look like it was ending anytime soon. The woman with the phone was still recording, now joined by an elderly man walking his dog. Angela felt exposed, humiliated, and increasingly angry. But she also felt something else, a growing determination to see this through no matter what it cost her. The backup patrol car arrived within minutes, its sirens cutting through the morning quiet of Millbrook Heights. Angela watched as Officer Davis stepped out, a younger man with curious eyes who seemed to take in the scene with genuine confusion. He approached Martinez, who was still standing near Angela's Mercedes, looking through her medical supplies with unnecessary thoroughness. What do we have here, Martinez? Davis asked, his voice carrying a tone that suggested he wasn't entirely sure why he'd been called. Suspicious vehicle, Martinez replied without looking up. Driver claims to be some kind of surgeon, but something's not right about her story. Angela felt her frustration boiling over. 10 minutes until her surgery was supposed to begin. She could picture her patient being prepped in the operating room, the surgical team waiting for her arrival. Years of medical training had taught her that timing in surgery could mean the difference between life and death. Officers, please, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I can prove who I am. My hospital ID is in my wallet. You can call Metropolitan General right now and ask for Dr. Patterson. He's expecting me in surgery in 10 minutes. Davis looked at Martinez with raised eyebrows. Why don't we just make the call? Martinez shook his head firmly. We don't know if she's telling the truth about any of this. Could be a whole network of people backing up her story. Angela stared at him in disbelief. A network? Officer, what exactly do you think is happening here? I think Martinez said, finally stopping his search and facing her directly. That you're driving a stolen vehicle, probably bought with drug money, and now you're spinning some elaborate tale about being a doctor to cover your tracks. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Angela felt her professional composure cracking further. She had spent her entire adult life building her reputation, earning respect through countless hours of study and practice. She had saved hundreds of lives, worked 18-hour days, missed family gatherings and holidays, all to become the surgeon she was today. Drug money? She repeated, her voice barely controlled. Officer Martinez, I graduated summa cum laude from Johns Hopkins Medical School. I completed my residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. I've been practicing cardiac surgery for 15 years. I have never so much as gotten a speeding ticket. Davis shifted uncomfortably. Martinez, maybe we should stay out of this, Davis. Martinez cut him off. I've been doing this job for 8 years. I know when something doesn't add up. More people had gathered on the sidewalk. The woman with the phone had been joined by several neighbors, including a man in a business suit who was openly filming the encounter. Angela noticed an elderly couple whispering to each other, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and concern. Ma'am, Davis said, addressing Angela directly. Do you have any identification that shows you work at the hospital? Angela nodded, eagerly. Yes, my hospital badge is in my purse. It has my photo and department listed. Martinez immediately objected. Hospital badges can be faked. Anyone can get one printed up. Davis gave Martinez a look that suggested his patience was wearing thin. Let's see the badge anyway. Angela reached into her purse and pulled out her hospital identification card. It was a professional photo showing her in surgical scrubs, with Dr. Angela Thompson, Cardiac Surgery Department, printed clearly below. Davis examined it carefully. This looks legitimate to me, Davis said, handing it back to her. Of course it looks legitimate, Martinez argued. These people are getting better at making fakes all the time. These people? Angela repeated, her voice sharp. What exactly do you mean by these people, Officer Martinez? Martinez's face reddened slightly. I mean criminals. People who steal cars and impersonate professionals. But Angela saw through the deflection. She had heard that tone before, seen that look in people's eyes. It was the same expression she had encountered in medical school when professors assumed she was there on some kind of special program rather than merit. The same look she got from patients who asked if she was really qualified to perform their surgery. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it quickly and saw it was from the hospital. Patient prepped and ready. ETA. Officers, my patient is ready for surgery right now, Angela said, showing them the message. People's lives are at stake here. Davis looked genuinely concerned. Martinez, why don't we escort her to the hospital? We can verify her story there. No, Martinez said firmly. She could have accomplices there. This whole thing could be set up. Angela couldn't help herself anymore. Accomplices? Officer Martinez? Do you hear yourself? You think I've set up an elaborate scheme involving an entire hospital just to, what exactly? Drive through this neighborhood? I've seen stranger things, Martinez replied stubbornly. Davis was clearly uncomfortable with the direction things were taking. Martinez, this woman has hospital ID, medical equipment in her car, and she's dressed professionally. Maybe we should... Are you questioning my judgment, Davis? Martinez's voice took on a threatening edge. Angela watched the interaction between the two officers with growing alarm. It was becoming clear that Martinez was determined to make this into something it wasn't, and Davis was too intimidated to stand up to his senior partner. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Dr. Patterson himself. Angela, where are you? We need to start. She answered the call, putting it on speaker so the officers could hear. Dr. Patterson, I'm being detained by police. Can you please identify me to these officers? Dr. Patterson's voice came through clearly. Officers, this is Dr. William Patterson, Chief of Cardiac Surgery at Metropolitan General Hospital. Dr. Thompson is one of our most respected surgeons. She's scheduled to perform an emergency procedure right now. Is there some kind of problem? Martinez grabbed the phone from Angela's hand. Sir, we're conducting a routine traffic stop. We'll be in touch if we need to verify anything. He ended the call before Dr. Patterson could respond further. You had no right to do that, Angela said, her anger finally showing. That was the chief of surgery at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the city. Anyone can make a phone call, Martinez replied dismissively. I told you, this could all be staged. Davis looked increasingly troubled. Martinez, the chief of surgery, just identified her personally. Don't you think? I think we need to run the plates on this vehicle again, Martinez interrupted, and check her for outstanding warrants. Angela felt the world spinning around her. This was beyond anything she had ever experienced. She was a pillar of her community, a woman who had dedicated her life to helping others, and she was being treated like a common criminal for no reason other than the color of her skin and Martinez's prejudiced assumptions. Officer Davis, she said, appealing to the younger man who seemed to have some sense left. Please, I am exactly who I say I am. My patient needs surgery. Every minute we waste here could be putting someone's life at risk. Davis looked torn, between doing what was right and not undermining his partner. Angela could see the conflict playing out on his face. Meanwhile, more people had gathered. Someone in the crowd called out, "Is everything okay over there?" The attention was making Martinez even more defensive and aggressive. "Everyone move along," Martinez shouted at the onlookers. "This is police business." But the crowd didn't disperse. If anything, more people seemed to be arriving, drawn by the commotion and the obvious tension of the situation. Angela's phone buzzed with yet another message from the hospital. This time it was from her surgical assistant. "Dr. Thompson, patient's condition is becoming unstable. We need you here immediately." She showed the message to Davis, who read it with growing concern on his face. Just as Angela was showing Officer Davis the urgent message from her surgical assistant, a familiar silver Honda pulled up behind the police cars. Her heart lifted with hope as she recognized Dr. Michael Richards stepping out of the vehicle. He was her colleague from the cardiac surgery department, someone she had worked alongside for over 6 years. "Angela," Dr. Richards called out, his face showing immediate concern as he took in the scene. "What's going on here?" Martinez immediately positioned himself between Dr. Richards and Angela. "Sir, this is a police matter. I need you to move along." "I'm Dr. Michael Richards from Metropolitan General Hospital," he said, pulling out his hospital ID. "This woman is my colleague. We're supposed to be in surgery together right now." Angela felt a wave of relief wash over her. Finally, someone who could vouch for her identity and put an end to this nightmare. "Michael, thank goodness. Please tell these officers who I am." Dr. Richards looked completely bewildered. "Officers, this is Dr. Angela Thompson. She's one of the finest cardiac surgeons in the city. We have a patient waiting for emergency surgery right now. What's this about?" Martinez studied Dr. Richards with the same suspicious eyes he had used on Angela. "How do I know you're really a doctor? You could be part of this whole setup." "Setup?" Dr. Richards repeated, his voice rising with incredulity. "Officer, what exactly do you think is happening here? Your friend here claims to be a surgeon, but I have reason to believe she's driving a stolen vehicle," Martinez explained, his tone suggesting he was proud of his detective work. Dr. Richards stared at Martinez as if he had lost his mind. "Stolen vehicle? Officer, I've known Angela for 6 years. I've watched her save countless lives. She drives the same car to work every day. That's what she wants you to think," Martinez replied stubbornly. Davis stepped forward, clearly embarrassed by his partner's behavior. "Dr. Richards, can you verify that Dr. Thompson works at your hospital?" "Of course I can verify it," Dr. Richards said, pulling out his phone. "I can call the hospital administrator right now. I can show you our surgical schedule. Angela is listed as the primary surgeon for an emergency procedure that was supposed to start 15 minutes ago." Angela's phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Patterson, and his voice carried an urgency that made her stomach drop. "Angela, we can't wait any longer. The patient's blood pressure is dropping. I'm going to have Dr. Wilson take over the surgery." "No, wait," Angela said desperately. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Please don't start without me." "I'm sorry, Angela. I can't risk the patient's life any longer. We're going in now." The line, Went dead. Angela stared at her phone in disbelief, then looked up at Martinez with tears forming in her eyes. Do you understand what just happened? A patient who was depending on me is now being operated on by someone else because you refused to believe I am who I say I am. For the first time since the encounter began, Martinez looked slightly uncertain, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. If you really are a surgeon, then one patient won't make a difference. One patient? Angela's voice cracked with emotion. Every patient makes a difference. That was a 63-year-old man who needs a triple bypass. Dr. Wilson is excellent, but he's not familiar with this particular case. I spent hours studying the scans, planning the approach. Dr. Richards put a protective hand on Angela's shoulder. Officers, you've made a serious mistake here. Dr. Thompson has just been prevented from performing a life-saving surgery because of this ridiculous detention. I was just doing my job, Martinez said defensively. No, Dr. Richards replied firmly. Your job is to serve and protect, not to harass innocent people based on your personal prejudices. The crowd of onlookers had grown larger. Angela noticed that several people were now openly recording the encounter with their phones. She felt exposed and humiliated, but also strangely grateful that there would be evidence of what had happened. A woman in the crowd called out, "Officers, this lady is a doctor. I've seen her on the news before. She saved my neighbor's life last year." Another voice added, "Yeah, she works at Metropolitan General. My wife had surgery there, and Dr. Thompson was amazing." Martinez looked around at the growing crowd with increasing agitation. Everyone needs to disperse immediately. This is interfering with police business. But the crowd didn't move. If anything, more people seemed to be arriving, drawn by the commotion and the obvious injustice of the situation. Angela's phone buzzed with a text from her surgical assistant. Surgery in progress. Dr. Wilson encountered complications. Patient. Stable but procedure taking longer than expected. She showed the message to Dr. Richards, who shook his head in frustration. Angela, I'm so sorry this happened. Officer Martinez, Dr. Richards addressed the stubborn policeman directly. I'm going to ask you one more time to end this detention. Dr. Thompson has done nothing wrong. She's a respected member of our medical community, and you're keeping her from doing her job. I don't take orders from civilians, Martinez replied coldly. Davis stepped closer to his partner. Martinez, maybe we should wrap this up. We've verified her identity multiple times now. Have we? Martinez challenged. Or have we just heard from more people who could be part of this elaborate scheme? Angela couldn't believe what she was hearing. Elaborate scheme, officer. Do you really think I've organized an entire fake hospital, hired actors to play doctors and patients, all so I could drive through this neighborhood without being questioned? When she put it that way, even Martinez seemed to realize how ridiculous his theory sounded, but his pride wouldn't let him admit he was wrong. Dr. Richards pulled out his phone again. I'm calling the hospital administrator. Maybe he can make you understand the gravity of what's happening here. Put it on speaker, Davis requested, shooting a warning look at Martinez. The phone rang twice before a professional voice answered. This is Administrator Johnson. Mr. Johnson, this is Dr. Richards. I'm here with Dr. Thompson, who's been detained by police and prevented from performing emergency surgery. Can you please identify her to these officers? Dr. Thompson? Administrator. Johnson's voice carried immediate concern. She's one of our top cardiac surgeons. Officers, what's this about? We have a patient in surgery right now who was supposed to be her case. Martinez grabbed the phone, just as he had done earlier. Sir, we're conducting a legitimate police investigation. We'll contact the hospital if we need further verification. He ended the call abruptly, ignoring the protests from both doctors. This is insane, Dr. Richards said, his professional composure finally cracking. You've now hung up on the chief of surgery and the hospital administrator. How many people do you need to identify Angela before you'll believe she's telling the truth? Angela felt defeated. Her patient was now in surgery with another doctor. Her reputation was being questioned in front of a crowd of neighbors, and Officer Martinez seemed determined to continue this charade no matter how much evidence was presented to him. She looked at her watch. The surgery she was supposed to perform was now 25 minutes behind schedule. Even if this ended right now, she wouldn't be able to help her patient. The damage was done. "Officer Martinez," she said quietly, her voice heavy with exhaustion and disappointment. "You've accomplished what you set out to do. You've prevented a black woman from doing her job. I hope you're satisfied." The words hung in the air like an accusation that couldn't be ignored. Even Martinez seemed to feel their weight. The video of Angela's detention spread across social media like wildfire. Within hours of the incident, the footage had been shared thousands of times, with hashtags like "Shower Justice for Dr. Thompson" and "Darn End Racial Profiling" trending on multiple platforms. The clip showed everything: Martinez's aggressive behavior, Angela's calm professionalism, and the moment she learned her patient's surgery had to proceed without her. Angela sat in her office at Metropolitan General Hospital staring at her computer screen as news outlets picked up the story. The local newspaper had already published an article titled, "Prominent Surgeon Detained by Police Misses Emergency Surgery." The comments section was a battlefield of opinions, some supporting her and others defending Officer Martinez's actions. Dr. Patterson knocked on her door and entered without waiting for permission. His face showed a mixture of concern and anger that Angela had rarely seen from the usually composed chief of surgery. "Angela, I just got off the phone with the mayor's office," he said, closing the door behind him. "They're asking questions about what happened this morning." Angela looked up from her computer, exhaustion written across her face. "How's Mr. Coleman?" "The patient is stable. Dr. Wilson did an excellent job, but there were complications that might not have occurred if you had been there from the start. You knew his case better than anyone." The words hit Angela like a physical blow. She had studied Mr. Coleman's scans for hours, identified potential problem areas, and planned every aspect of the surgery. Her absence had real consequences, not just for her professional pride but for her patient's well-being. "I should have been there," she said quietly. "This wasn't your fault, Angela. What happened this morning was completely unacceptable." Dr. Patterson sat down across from her. "The hospital administration is taking this very seriously. We're considering filing a formal complaint with the police department." Angela shook her head. "I'm not sure I want to go down that road. It'll just bring more attention, more scrutiny. I just want to get back to my work." "Angela, you can't let this slide. If Martinez gets away with this, he'll do it to someone else. Maybe someone who doesn't have the resources or support system that you have." Before Angela could respond, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Dr. Thompson, this is Rebecca Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about what happened this morning." Angela sighed. "I'm not interested in speaking to the media right now. Dr. Thompson, people are calling for accountability. Your story could make a real difference." After declining the interview, Angela's phone immediately rang again. This time it was a different news station, then another. Word had spread quickly and everyone wanted her side of the story. Dr. Richards appeared in her doorway. "Angela, you need to see this." He handed her his tablet, which showed a local news website. The headline read, "Officer Martinez has history of complaints, sources say." Angela read the article with growing surprise. According to the report, Martinez had been the subject of at least 6 complaints in the past 3 years, all involving allegations of racial profiling or excessive force. Most of the complaints had been dismissed or resulted in minor disciplinary action. "This is what I'm talking about," Dr. Patterson said after reading over her shoulder. "This wasn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern." Angela's office phone rang. This time it was the hospital's public relations director. "Dr. Thompson, we're getting flooded with media requests. The story is going national. CNN just called." National news. Angela felt overwhelmed by the thought of her personal ordeal becoming a public spectacle. She had never sought attention or controversy. She just wanted to practice medicine and help her patients. Her cell phone buzzed with a text message from her sister. "Saw the video online. Are you okay? This is all over Facebook." Then another from her mother. "Angela, honey, call me as soon as you can. I'm so proud of how you handled yourself." Messages were pouring in from colleagues, former patients, medical school classmates, and people she hadn't heard from in years. The support was overwhelming, but so was the attention. Dr. Richards sat down next to her. "Angela, I know this is hard, but maybe you should consider speaking out. Not for the media attention, but for all the other people who don't have your platform." "What do you mean?" "I mean the nurses who get pulled over and searched. The medical students who get questioned about whether they really belong in this profession. The patients who get substandard care because of unconscious bias." Dr. Richards leaned forward. "You have a voice that people will listen to. You can make this about more than just what happened to you." Angela stared out her office window at the city below. She thought about all the times she had bitten her tongue when faced with subtle discrimination. The patients who had requested a real doctor when they saw her. The conferences where colleagues assumed she was a nurse instead of a surgeon. The countless microaggressions she had learned to ignore in order to focus on her work. Her phone rang again. This time it was Officer Davis, Martinez's partner from that morning. "Dr. Thompson, this is Officer Davis. I wanted to call and apologize for what happened today." Angela was surprised to hear from him. "Officer Davis, ma'am, I want you to know that what Officer Martinez did doesn't represent the values of our department. I should have done more to stop it." "Thank you for calling," Angela said, though she wasn't sure how to respond to his apology. "There's something else you should know. I've filed a report about Martinez's conduct this morning. I couldn't stay quiet about what I witnessed." After Davis hung up, Angela sat quietly for several minutes. Dr. Patterson and Dr. Richards waited patiently for her to process everything. "The hospital's legal team wants to meet with you," Dr. Patterson finally said. "They think you have grounds for a significant lawsuit." "I don't want money," Angela replied. "I just want this to never happen again." "Then maybe that's exactly why you should fight," Dr. Richards suggested. "Not for money, but for change." Angela's computer chimed with an email notification. It was from a civil rights organization offering legal support. Then another from a medical association, expressing solidarity. Her inbox was filling up with messages from people and organizations wanting to help. She picked up her phone and scrolled through the social media posts about her incident. Most were supportive, but some were harsh and cruel. People questioning her character, her qualifications, even her right to drive through certain neighborhoods. But there were other posts too. From young black medical students saying she was an inspiration. From other professionals sharing their own stories of discrimination. From community leaders calling for police reform. "You know what bothers me most?" Angela said suddenly. "It's not just what Martinez did to me. It's that while he was playing out his prejudices, my patient was lying on an operating table waiting for help." Dr. Patterson nodded. "That's exactly why this matters. This isn't just about you, Angela. It affects everyone you treat, everyone who depends on you." Angela made her decision. She picked up her phone and called the reporter from Channel 7 News. Back. "Ms. Chen, this is Dr. Angela Thompson. I've reconsidered your interview request." "Wonderful. When would be a good time?" "As soon as possible," Angela said, looking at her colleagues. "But I want to make something clear. This isn't about me seeking attention or trying to become famous. This is about making sure that what happened today never happens to anyone else." As she scheduled the interview, Angela felt a mixture of fear and determination. She was about to step into a spotlight she had never wanted, but she knew it was the right thing to do. 3 weeks after the interview aired, Angela found herself standing in the packed auditorium of the city council building. The room buzzed with conversation as community members, police officials, city leaders, and media representatives filled every available seat. She had never imagined that her morning traffic stop would lead to this moment, but here she was, about to address the city council about police reform. The internal investigation had moved swiftly once Officer Davis came forward with his report. Within days of Angela's television interview, which had been viewed over 2 million times online, the police department announced that Officer Martinez was being placed on unpaid suspension pending a full investigation. The investigation revealed a troubling pattern that went far beyond Angela's case. Detective Lisa Rodriguez, who led the internal affairs inquiry, had uncovered 8 additional complaints against Martinez over the past 4 years. Each case followed a similar pattern: routine traffic stops that escalated unnecessarily, almost always involving people of color. The department had either dismissed these complaints or buried them in paperwork, allowing Martinez to continue his behavior unchecked. Angela's story had opened the floodgates. After her interview aired, 5 more people came forward with their own experiences involving Martinez. There was Kevin, a young black teacher who had been pulled over 3 times in 6 months while driving to work. Maria, a Latina nurse who had been detained for an hour because Martinez insisted her hospital scrubs were suspicious. And David, a black businessman who had been handcuffed and searched in front of his children during what should have been a simple traffic stop. The police union initially defended Martinez, claiming he was being unfairly targeted because of one viral video. But as more evidence emerged, even they began to distance themselves from his actions. The union president issued a statement saying that while they supported their officers, they could not defend behavior that violated department policies and community trust. Angela's phone rang constantly with interview requests from major news networks. Her story had struck a nerve across the country, sparking conversations about racial profiling in cities from coast to coast. But she was careful about which interviews she accepted, wanting to keep the focus on systemic change rather than her personal experience. The hospital had been incredibly supportive throughout the ordeal. Dr. Patterson made it clear that Angela had the full backing of the medical center, and her colleagues rallied around her with an outpouring of support. Patients began requesting her specifically for their surgeries, saying they wanted to be treated by the doctor who had shown such grace under pressure. Mr. Coleman, the patient whose surgery Angela had missed, made a full recovery. When he learned what had happened, he asked to meet with her personally. Their conversation brought tears to Angela's eyes as he thanked her for speaking out and said he was proud that his surgeon was someone willing to stand up for what was right. The investigation also revealed systemic problems within the police department's complaint process. It became clear that many legitimate complaints had been dismissed without proper investigation, creating an environment where problematic officers like Martinez could continue their behavior without consequences. City Council member Janet Williams had reached out to Angela personally, asking her to testify at today's hearing about proposed police reforms. The reforms included mandatory bias training, body cameras for all officers, an independent oversight committee, and a complete overhaul of the complaint process. As Angela approached the podium, she looked out at the diverse crowd. She saw faces of all colors and backgrounds, people who had been affected by similar experiences or who simply believed in justice and equality. In the front row sat her parents, who had driven 5 hours to be there. Her mother gave her an encouraging nod. "Thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak today," Angela began, her voice steady despite her nerves. 3 weeks ago, I was just a surgeon trying to get to work to save a patient's life. I never wanted to become the face of police reform or a symbol of anything. But sometimes life puts us in positions where we have to choose between staying quiet and speaking up for what's right. She paused, looking around the room. What happened to me wasn't just about one bad officer. It was about a system that allowed that officer to continue harmful behavior for years without consequences. It was about unconscious bias that makes some people automatically suspicious in the eyes of law enforcement, regardless of their profession, education, or character. Angela talked about the impact on her patient, emphasizing that police misconduct didn't just hurt the direct victims but had ripple effects throughout the community. She spoke about the other victims who had come forward, people who had suffered in silence until they saw that speaking up could make a difference. I want to be clear, she continued. This isn't about being anti-police. I have tremendous respect for law enforcement officers who serve their communities with integrity and fairness. Officer Davis showed real courage when he reported his partner's misconduct. We need more officers like him and fewer like Martinez. The audience erupted in applause. Angela waited for quiet before continuing. The reforms being proposed today aren't radical ideas. They're common sense measures that will help good officers do their jobs better while holding bad officers accountable. Body cameras protect both citizens and police. Bias training helps officers recognize their unconscious prejudices. Independent oversight ensures that complaints are investigated fairly. Council member Williams asked Angela about the personal cost of going public with her story. Angela thought for a moment before answering honestly about the stress, the media attention, and the online harassment she had received. But she also talked about the positive responses, the young people who said her example inspired them, the other victims who found their voice, and the meaningful conversations about race and justice that were happening in communities across the country. The hearing lasted 4 hours, with testimony from police officials, community leaders, and other citizens. When it ended, the council voted unanimously to approve the reform package. It was a victory that felt both satisfying and bittersweet to Angela. Progress had been made, but it had taken a viral video and national attention to get there. Officer Martinez was ultimately fired from the police department. He faced no criminal charges, but his law enforcement career was over. The other officers who had failed to properly investigate complaints against him received disciplinary action, ranging from suspension to mandatory retraining. Angela established the Thompson Foundation for Justice and Medical Equity with donations that poured in from across the country. The foundation provided legal support for victims of police misconduct and scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing careers in medicine and law. 6 months later, Angela returned to her routine of saving lives in the operating room. But her perspective had changed forever. She continued speaking at medical conferences and community events, sharing her story and advocating for both police reform and greater diversity in healthcare. The incident had transformed her from a private person focused solely on her medical practice into a reluctant but powerful advocate for justice. She often thought about that morning when Martinez pulled her over, how it had started as the worst day of her professional life, but had ultimately led to meaningful change. Angela never sought to become a public figure, but she learned that sometimes ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things. Her courage to speak out had not only brought justice in her own case, but had created a ripple effect that would protect countless others from experiencing what she had endured. The traffic stop that was meant to diminish her had instead amplified her voice and her impact on the world. Sometimes Angela realized the most powerful response to injustice isn't silence or anger, but the determination to ensure that your experience becomes the last time anyone has to suffer the same way.